What is a VA lay statement and how can it help with a VA disability claim? I've been working for Vet Comp and Penn Medical Consulting for several years, helping veterans understand what key evidence they need to help support their VA disability claim. I've learned after reading many rating decision letters and speaking to many veterans about their claim on the phone, I've learned that veterans don't always understand the value of lay evidence. They don't think the VA is going to pay attention to what they say. They think, oh, the VA is not going to listen to what I say about my disability, and that's just not true. I'm going to provide some examples of where lay evidence can really help support a VA disability claim. I know veterans think they have to have a nexus statement to win disability benefits that they deserve. There are certain types of claims that a nexus statement is very valuable and it can mean the difference between a win or a loss. But there are also many types of claims where lay evidence is just as vital, if not more so, for winning the benefits that a veteran truly deserves. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of where lay evidence is really valuable. Let's talk about direct claims. In other words, a disability the veteran experienced on active duty, continued to have, and now is diagnosed with a chronic condition. That's a direct claim. It's directly related to their active duty military service. So let's talk about a very common claim. In fact, it's one of the top 10 disability claims that veterans submit to the VA, and that's low back pain. So many veterans develop chronic low back pain in service, continue to have a problem, and are eventually diagnosed with degenerative arthritis of their back, and they file a claim. So let's talk about hypothetical veteran 1. Hypothetical veteran 1 is on active duty, starts having bad back pain, goes and sees medical. Medical treats them with ibuprofen, limits their activity, tells them they have a low back strain, and the veteran goes about their business. Well, the veteran keeps experiencing chronic pain, but they think, why should I go back to medical? They're just going to give me ibuprofen. I can do that. They lay low a little bit when they have a flare-up. They get their buddy to carry their stuff, help them out a little bit, compensate for them. They continue to have flare-ups throughout their military career, and they just self-treat with ibuprofen and they don't complain about it, because in the military you don't complain. That veteran gets out of service, that veteran continues to have back pain. Eventually it gets so bad they go to see a doctor. Doctor does x-rays. That veteran is diagnosed with degenerative disc disease of his lumbar spine. He thinks, you know what, that started when I was on active duty. I developed back problems while I was serving in the military, so I should be eligible for benefits for that condition that I developed on active duty. So they file a claim. They go to their compensation and pension exam. They get evaluated for their back. Later, they get a decision letter in the mail, and they get denied benefits. And the decision letter says something like, the evidence supports the conclusion that a persistent disability was not present in service. So the VA is saying, listen, we see that you complained of your back one time in service, but we don't see that you had a chronic disability. We see that you currently have a condition, but because you didn't develop a chronic disability in service, you're not eligible for direct service connection. So let's talk a little bit about how lay evidence can fix that. A veteran can write a statement in support of claim explaining that they continued to have chronic pain in service. They can get a buddy statement or a buddy letter that can also support that conclusion by stating, yes, I observed this veteran with chronic pain. He was complaining all the time. Sometimes he would ask me to carry his stuff so he didn't exacerbate his back. I know he had back pain for years while I served with him. So with that lay evidence, that can fill that hole in between the veteran's initial complaint of back pain in service and their chronic problem that existed while they were serving. The Court of Appeals for Veteran Claims has time and time again told the lower courts that they have to consider lay evidence when they weigh positives and negatives for a case. In fact, the CAVC has said that a disability is defined, a chronic disability is defined by symptoms, not treatment. So you're not required to have treatment for over 6 months to show you have a chronic problem. A chronic disability is defined by symptoms over at least a 6-month period. So lay evidence can fill that hole of initially complaining, chronically having a problem. It can show that you in fact had that disability chronically for a period of time, which can determine that you actually suffered a chronic disability in service. So let's talk about a different veteran. Let's talk about a veteran that has a back problem as well. He developed a back problem in service. He complained all the time. He actually got a back brace in service. He went to physical therapy. His activity was restricted frequently. He had a profile because of his lower back problem. He gets out of service, continues to have back problems, back pain. It would flare up from time to time. Eventually, he got a good job, got some private medical insurance, and he went and got evaluated for his back, and same thing. He got diagnosed with degenerative arthritis of his lumbar spine. So this veteran says, you know what? There's tons of evidence in my service treatment records that I suffered this problem. I'm gonna file a claim. They file a claim for degenerative arthritis of their back. They go to their CNP examination. CNP examiner says, yeah, I can see you had a lot of problems with your back in service. So they feel pretty good about their claim. Well, this veteran gets a denial as well. It's a little bit different, but it basically says, although we see symptoms, treatment, or diagnosis similar to that claim, the medical evidence supports the conclusion that there was no continuity of symptoms from service to present. So that couple years that the veteran was out of service and they didn't seek treatment, the VA is basically saying, we don't see any evidence that you had a continuous problem. Again, lay evidence can fill this hole in, this gap between their chronic problem on active duty and their chronic problem currently. That gap can be filled, that continuity of symptoms can be filled with lay evidence. Let's talk about triggering the duty to assist, when lay evidence can trigger the duty to assist. Many veterans file claims and they just expect the VA to do all the work, and the VA does have a duty to assist, but veterans frequently don't understand that they have a burden as well. They have a burden when they file their claim to show that their claim is in some way well-grounded. When I say well-grounded, that they currently suffer a disability that's eligible for benefits, and that there's some possible way that it could be connected to their active duty military service. If a veteran just files a claim and there's no evidence in their service treatment records of that disability, they don't show that they have a current problem and they don't show how it can be related to service, they may not even get a compensation and pension exam because they didn't provide enough medical evidence to trigger that duty to assist, that the VA is then required to provide an evaluation at a compensation and pension exam and to ask for a medical opinion. So those are several examples, 3 examples of where lay evidence is very valuable for a veteran to get the benefits that they truly deserve. Let's talk about a secondary claim. Veteran files a secondary claim for acid reflux secondary to the chronic non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs they take for their service-connected knees. Well, they didn't have bad acid reflux before, but they have to take ibuprofen almost every day for their pain in their knees. They develop horrible acid reflux. Their doctor even says, you know what, you wouldn't have such bad acid reflux if you weren't taking all this ibuprofen. The veteran says, you know what, I'm going to file a claim because I wouldn't have, the doctor just told me I wouldn't have this if I didn't have my knee problem. So he files a secondary claim, gets denied, goes to his doctor for a nexus statement. Doctor writes a nexus statement for him, appeals it, he wins service connection, but he gets 10% for his acid reflux. That veteran who won his acid reflux claim is thrilled that he won service connection for his condition. The problem is he's not rated appropriately because his symptoms, his subjective symptoms, which show his level of disability and equal his rating for his condition, were not documented when he first filed his claim. His doctor documented that he had acid reflux and he was being treated and he still had symptoms, but all the symptoms that determine his level of disability and rating are not frequently captured in his doctor's notes. So if this veteran had simply documented on a statement in support of claim all of the symptoms that he had to get the appropriate rating of 30%, he would have gotten back pay at 30% all the way back to his initial claim date. But now he has to file an appeal for the rating to get the appropriate benefits and get the benefits that he truly medically qualifies for. And it's going to take years, and he may not get paid back to his initial claim date because there's not evidence of his level of disability until he finally puts in his statement. So lay evidence not only can support service connection, not only can support that a chronic disability existed in service, not only can support that there's continuity of symptoms, but it also can support the correct rating if you win service connection for your condition. So these are all examples of when lay evidence is vital for a veteran to get the benefits that they deserve. One other thing that I want to explain where lay evidence is valuable. There's something called one-year presumptive conditions. These conditions are chronic conditions that if a veteran is diagnosed with within a year of separation from active duty, if they're diagnosed with those conditions, they're presumed to be caused by active duty service. Arthritis is one of those conditions. Many veterans suffer occasional pain in their joints and painful motion, but they don't get x-rays of their condition. Those joint pains continue after active duty. More than a year goes by. They get diagnosed after getting an x-ray with degenerative arthritis. Well, they had symptoms of that condition within that 1 year period, but they didn't get x-rays until later. If that veteran provides lay evidence, hopefully a buddy statement as well, maybe a family member that observed how they responded when they had pain in that joint, that veteran can document with lay evidence that they had painful motion of that joint during that 1 year period. And if they're diagnosed with that condition of arthritis even after a year, it can show that they most likely had that condition within that presumptive period, and they can win service connection based on that lay evidence. So lay evidence is invaluable for a veteran to win the benefits that they truly medically qualify for. I can't say it enough. That's all I got on lay evidence. I know it's a lot, but I think lay evidence is that important that it took me a while to explain all the reasons why it's so valuable for a VA disability claim. I appreciate you listening.
The information contained in this video is informational and not professional advice. Rely on it at your own risk and see a qualified medical or other professional to discuss individual circumstances in all cases.